And a pleasant Saturday to you alongside track handicapper and line maker Rick Lee. I'm Jim Byers. Thanks for looking in today at Lone Star Park at Grand Prairie, where right now, Rick, feels a little like New Orleans. It's warm, it's a little muggy, it's not hot necessarily. There's a chance of some rain later. We're fast and firm right now. Let's hope it stays that way.
Yeah, I think it will. I'm optimistic about that, and we really need it to be too.
So the first race on the turf, I really had a tough time, Rick, because originally figured, I don't know if we're going to be on the turf on Saturday. The weather earlier this week was forecast to be dire. It didn't turn out that bad. So then I had to reanalyze and re-engage a little bit, and I had a really tough time between Jewel Street and Catch the Devil. To me, it's a tough call between the two. What did you end up going with in the first?
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of yesterday in that four-horse field. We had it narrowed down to 3, and then the fourth one won.
Yeah.
I was a little embarrassed by that because I thought there was only one horse that couldn't win the race, and it's the one that won it. So it tells you a little bit about
last to first pish horse?
Yeah. Doggone. That's humbling. But anyway, this sport will humble you. I had the same issue there. I decided to go with the 10, Catch the Devil. His races at Remington Park against Open Maiden Special Weights were really good. Breaks his maiden on the turf at Houston against State Bred Special Weights by nearly 8 lengths, getting the lead. Had a turf sprint. I guess that's probably the only allowance race, restricted allowance race at Houston at the end of the meet there. Finished really strong. Now back at her distance. I think if she makes the early lead, she'll be double tough. She may not have to have the lead to win, but I really hope that they hustle her out of the gate, and that gives her best chance. The 6, Jewel Street. Last year raced very well. Broke her maiden over this turf course by 2 1/4 lengths. Came back in the Fiesta Mile here at Lone Star Park, beating only 2 lengths. So that was a really good effort. She was 3 then, and that was against older fillies and mares as well. This year, I'm not so sure she's as good as she was a year ago, but nevertheless, her buyer figures are very competitive, and throw out her last race because that was on the main track. This 2-horse Tahitian Breeze, who was going to be my top pick on the main track, still ran decently, kind of an even effort in her only career race on turf. But again, that was against open allowance rivals. She seems to be a little bit better now than she was when she tried turf the first time. You see Dynaformer on the bottom of her pedigree, and it just leads you to believe that, her future may be on turf.
One thing I didn't mention earlier, scratch the 1 Whipham Nene. That's virtually a daily occurrence here. Scratch the 3 Texas Music Box and scratch the main track only Chow Chow. This opener, first level allowance for Texas bred fillies and mares. I went the other way with the, I don't know if you'd call it a coin flip, but I went the other way and took Jewel Street over Catch the Devil. I guess we might as well make it interesting in the very first race. Kind of like yesterday when we differed on the first race pick. I think this Jewel Street's tough at this level. All the reasons you mentioned. She took on boys both March 31st and February 5th for Joaquin Garza and competed pretty well against the boys. When she's been in against fillies, one time was on the main track, rained off turf, and the other was in the Miss Bluebonnet. Way too tough a spot for her. I don't know if she's as good as she was last year either, but I went ahead and gave her the nod. Catch the Devil, though. I mean, she took on boys last time herself. And I thought acquitted herself pretty well and, really appears to be the main speed in here, and she's going to be tough to catch. I got a lot of sheets of paper here because I did a set for turf and I did a set in case we got switched off, so forgive me while I shuffle papers. Second race. Oh, by the way, first race is a super high 5 race, $4,000 and a little bit of change to carry over in the super high 5 to the first, and $152,570 carryover in the 6-shooter, which will start a little bit later on today in race number 4. But on to the second race, a mile, Texas-bred maiden special weights.
Yeah, like all state-bred races, whether I don't care which state you're in, they're always, kind of watered down. This is a tough one, but the 6, it's my money too, deserves favoritism. Beating only a neck at Houston in a special weight sprint. Tried 2 turns for the first time here on May 2nd and really raced well. a little further behind than you would have expected coming out of sprint races. Got to the front, contested to the front, at least in mid-stretch, finishing second. That was a really nice race. Was bet down to even money on that day. Similar type of field, hence as a line maker, you kind of like that. Horses even money finishes second. You figure making them even money today off that two-turn experience seems pretty safe. The 5 Lumberjack Leslie was 7-2 last time in the same race as It's My Money too. Actually battled with her into deep stretch, tired a little bit late. Hence the 5-2 today, plus the fact on May 15th she actually came back and worked 47-4. So it's really sharp work since the race, just behind It's My Money too. I could see her turning the tables. And then the 2 Landon's Congo, who last time out ran at the very bottom of the state bred maiden 7,500 level and ran a much improved race. That also was her first time around 2 turns, beaten less than a length. If you go back to the Houston meeting, she did run in maiden special weight company and finished second in a 5 1/2 furlong race. So sometimes horses at this level do jump from maiden claimer into maiden special weight and win. We've seen it a couple times already at this meeting.
Yeah, and, I've got her third as well. I mean, she got tired late there, but still ran a really nice race to only be beaten a half length. And, that was her first try around 2 turns. Maybe hangs on a little bit better today. But, I went with the favorite, too. I mean, like you said, she was just favored against very similar. And Airline Drive was just too good that day, and it was just not going to be beaten, it didn't look like. And yet was still a good, clear second over Lumberjack Leslie. And I like the fact that It's My Money, too, has come back and worked. It wasn't impressive time-wise, but it's come back and worked since. And we mentioned her trainer, Alejandro Baldiez Jr. That is the former quarter horse rider, Alex Baldiez, who won an All-American and was a really good rider, best known as a quarter horse rider, but rode thoroughbreds early in his career. That is Alex Baldiez, training as Alejandro Baldiez Jr., and which is, of course, his name. And I wanted to point that out because you and I talked about that on an earlier show.
Yeah, and I did want to. I'm glad you mentioned that Landon's Congo may have needed that race. The first start she made of the year, she got beat 21 lengths and earned a big 0 buyer figure. So I think it's safe to say she didn't get a lot out of that. So therefore, she runs. She's narrowly beaten third, and this is essentially really the second start after a layoff, you could almost say.
Yeah, very good point. On to the third. I think this is a really good dash, this third race. I really struggled over this one for a while before I came up with a top pick. You got the 2 and the 7, Devilish Wit and Canoodling, who are the top 2 choices on the line, facing Older for the first time. You got Fillies and Mares, non-winners of 3. Their allowance runners going 6 furlongs. Really interesting race. I don't know if the 3 is named after former big league pitcher John Halama, but it's possible. And nonetheless, she is going to factor in this as well. As I know on the program, you've got her in bold face.
Yeah, this is my best long shot. I'm very consistent. My best long shot always comes out of highly contentious races for good reason. Experience has told me that's when you pull the trigger. But I did pick the 3, Halama, who has not raced since February. That's a knock. The horse had previously been trained by Bill Mott and Brendan Walsh. So that's another, you could say, almost a negative. However, for $50,000 was a decisive winner in the fall at Churchill Downs, proving that I think she's good enough to win this race. She made the lead that day. There's some front runners in this race, but no super fast horses, so I'm hoping her being fresh. And off 3 really fast workouts here at Lone Star Park, kind of reminiscent of the horse I picked yesterday that ran third as my long shot, the horse from Sean Davis's barn out of Arizona. Yeah, kind of reminds me of that one a little bit with the flashy works.
Yeah.
And that one disappointed a little bit, still ran well. I'm going to give Halama a chance, though, being a fresh speed horse. The 5, Hillary G, Arkansas bred, like my children, an Arkansas bred, so that I always give them a little extra there. Won back-to-back races, a maiden special weight race, then came into the Rainbow Miss, straight 3-year-olds, and was an easy winner. The third-place finisher, Kaboom Baby, did come back to win an allowance race. I know she defeated this filly, but nevertheless, moves to the Gustafson barn, which has been just money in the bank at this meeting. Austin's really done a phenomenal job. And Ramon Vasquez, one of the region's high percentage riders, gets the return call. Devilish Wit, as Jim mentioned, another 3-year-old in the race. Back-to-back wins at Houston, went to Oaklawn Park to run in the Purple Martin, seemed overmatched there, 22-1, and actually ran a terrific race, beating only 2 lengths. Stayed in Hot Springs, didn't break very well against a really strong optional claiming field, beating 4 lengths there. If she bounces back to the race she ran in the Purple Martin, going to be very tough to beat.
Yeah. No, I went ahead and took her just on that. I mean, Abrogate is an Asmussen. That's the filly that beat her in the Purple Martin. Abrogate's already made almost $250,000. The filly Heartful of Soul that beat her at Oaklawn last time and is a Canterbury Stakes winner who's won 3 out of 5. And we've seen Becca's Rocket before. She's a pretty useful, albeit maybe slightly disappointing
for me, at
filly.
least.
Yeah, but I mean, has run up a pretty good career so far. So she's been running against tough. But I mean, this is by no means any kind of a slam dunk type of race. This is a really wide open dash. But I went with her over Canoodling, who comes off a little layoff since January for Todd Fincher. I think Canoodling might get a nice trip in here. She can lay fairly close, but is a stalker type. And her races on the West Coast were pretty good. I gave her the nod for second over Halama. I have her third and Hillary G fourth. And then, you got a horse like Girl You Fine, who just dazzled a field of first-level allowance runners here on a muddy surface on May 1st. If the track comes up muddy by the third race, which I'm not saying it will, but I don't know if she's this good, but, she ran a pretty nice race. And, it's a really good race.
Yeah, it's an excellent race.
On to the fourth. This kicks off the 6-shooter. We mentioned $152,570 in the carryover on the turf at 5/8 of a mile here, and this is an interesting race as well because the plain 1 7 cents is scratched, as is the 5. The recent winner here, Let It Be. I think that takes a little speed out of this one. And I didn't really like Let It Be here, but he does appear to be very, very fast. I went with Triple Creek before the scratches, and now I'm even happier that I have Triple Creek because I think he might be out there sailing along. We'll see. I don't know if he's this good anymore, but I took him.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I try not to, when a top trainer has an entry, they scratch one. I always assume there's good reason, and I'm sticking with Double Barrel Man for Broberg. Won a $20,000 claimer at Evangeline last time out on the main track, in really good form. An 11 race winner, hasn't been on turf very often in his career, but I'm going to assume he's so sharp. Our turf course, sometimes you don't need a real green pedigree to skip over it, so I'm going to take Double Barrel Man. The 4-horse Power End is my next selection. Won that a 2 other than at Houston in a turf sprint just 2 starts back. And last time out, was a little bit of a disappointment, but that was a really strong field. Has won 2 of 3 turf sprints at Lone Star Park, so this Asmussen train, he just loves the distance. Not a lot of early speed, but nevertheless, I think he'll power away. And then the 3, Bob's Bad Boy. This is another veteran turf sprinter, been in the exact 6 of 11 starts. Really good form. Hasn't won since November 11th at Remington, so he's lost his last 4, but finished a close second behind Power End at Houston. So I don't think there's a lot separating the 2 of them. It's just will he break well? Last time he had a wide trip and broke poorly because generally he's more forwardly placed than he was last time.
Well, he also spent a minute and a half, 2 minutes refusing to load last time as well. He was a very bad actor. He was well named as far as his gate behavior, and I didn't know if they were going to be able to get him in there, but he did, and then he didn't break well. And if you drop 10 lengths back in a 5/8 turf sprint here, you might as well just wrap it up. And, here's my thought on this race. I mean, I preferred 7 cents over Double Barrel Man, but I learned a long time ago not to question the old Broberg scratching half the entry situation. If you do, you'll question about half the races on an average card. But, Double Barrel Man's earned $442,000. He's an 11-time winner. He hasn't won on the turf, but his Beyer Fig career on the turf isn't totally out of range, but I still picked against him. I like Triple Creek only because his last race, XY Speed, is that horse that a couple years ago was running in Gulfstream and Monmouth and places back east and turf sprints and running 91 Beyer figs and things like that. And had been off for a while, and Asmussen has him now. Royal Bertrando, there isn't a faster horse early in turf sprints here at any level. I don't know if Triple Creek's as good as he used to be, but he chased a ridiculously fast Royal Bertrando last time and then got outfinished late by the closers like XY Speed. I think he's liable to find himself just squarely on the lead here. So I'm going to give him one more shot. I picked him last time, and he was dead on the board at 6-1. I might be going, down the chute with him. Bob's Bad Boy and Power End, I mean, they both ran the same race last time in the Archie Dust race. If you believe that Archie Dust race is considerably better than the XY Speed race, then, so I don't know. Neither of those races, to me, were visually very impressive when I watched the replay. But that might be a tougher race. I'm not sure it really is that much tougher, but we'll see. And then, the Double Barrel Man, I still have the entry second, but...
Yeah, the late scratch of Let It Be, man, I almost wish I'd have picked your horse here, Triple Creek, because I'm with you. I do think now he's going to be double tough to catch.
And that seems to be the way he wins. I mean, he's shown some races where he can sit second and win, but Triple Creek's pretty much a just go and let him catch him. Now, the fifth race we have video for, first time we've been able to show video of a 2-year-old race. There's one second-time starter in here, Free Like a Girl. We're going to go back to her race on May 8th. She has an immediate lead in this race, and she goes to the front. She's 2-1 in this particular day. The favorite, Casey's Memory. Now, Free Like a Girl is in the green check silks, number 3. Now, Casey's Memory is 4-5, draws right up alongside her. They straighten for home here. Casey's Memory is going to go on to win by 3 parts of a length. Now, okay, it's a small field. There's only 5 of them in there. There's only 4 in the picture here. I think Free Like a Girl digs in and runs pretty well here from the inside. She drew the 2-hole that day. She's drawn outside today. She's still giving Casey's Memory all he can handle, and he was odds on. And the margin was called 3 parts of a length. To me, it was a half by eyesight. But, had only a series of 3 furlong works coming into that. I like her. I like returners. I'm taking her.
All right. I like now.
Oh, but there's a scratch out of here.
Yeah,
Expect the Boss. Part
scratch.
of the entry is out, so a fundamental scratch for Asmussen there.
Yeah, when I was handicapping Churchill for tomorrow, which I do for the nation, and I saw Expect the Boss was in tomorrow at Churchill, so I thought, oh man. Don't tell me they're going to do a super stock, which is what they did with the Arkansas Derby winner.
I missed on his picking, too. So.
Yeah, so anyway, they ran in Kentucky instead of debuting here. Then he came back and won a stake, and Expect the Boss, you can see he's a Texas bred. I almost feel like they're going to do the same. They're going to go up there and get a good race and come back here. But nevertheless, I now have the 3. Dial 10 for G. This is a horse that had troubles in the paddock.
Yeah, flipped in the paddock, was a vet scratch on May 14th, so not very long ago. I can't take her just for that reason. I mean, if you come over for a race and you flip in the paddock and you're a vet scratch and you're back in a week later, I'm sorry. She may win by 5, but she's going to do it without me on her bandwagon, so I passed on her. And by the way, that should also be listed in the PPs, but that's an argument for another.
Yeah, Gustafson's been so good with his first-time starters. And this one, to me, that 37-3, which I mentioned when I picked her on the day she was a late scratch because of poor behavior in the paddock. I mean, there was 3 of them that broke from the gate together, 37-3, which isn't much. But the jockey was water skiing on this one. I mean, this filly was really being restrained. So I know she's very fast, and I'm going to give her another chance in here. I guess I'll pick her until she finally behaves and gets to the starting gate.
Well, your track record is better than mine with 2-year-olds, so, but still, I'm going to take the one that we've seen, that can get out there, but we'll see. I mean, Gustafson wins a lot, so and he deserves the accolades.
Oh, I know a lot of people that really are exceptional handicappers, and they prefer a race over a first-timer with flashy breezes. And Free Like a Girl, you can't get much better debut than that.
Yeah, that was a good debut.
Being under pressure with a 4-5 shot, they actually bumped at the top of the lane, a little intimidation maybe. But, no, that was a terrific career debut.
Oh, and that was against boys, too, I might point out. Casey's Memory's a Colt or a Gelly. I mean, it doesn't indicate that race was against fillies.
Yeah, and then the third pick is Catch Us If You Can. Calhoun, obviously no local breezes here. But Legal Mind was a stakes winner at Houston, the dam of this filly, and I haven't seen the work, so I'm just based on Legal Mind, how well she raced early in her career, and Calhoun's record with first-time starters over the years here at Lone Star Park. I'm going to assume Tom Duran has her here, and he likes to get his picture made.
Yeah. No, I agree. I looked her up as well. I mean, she went out of that Sam Houston stake win in 13 and went right to the Fantasy at Oaklawn Park, and now ran last there, but they at least thought of enough of her to ship her right there to Hot Springs. You know, I took the 7 over the 3. I mean, Dial 10 for G was getting hammered at the wager at the windows when she flipped and was scratched the other day. I may be a little too hard on her, but I'm gonna try to beat her. And I took my friend Amy, for a good first time out trainer as a third pick over Catches if you can.
And we didn't mention Ochita, which could be our undoing because you never know with the Asmussen 2-year-olds.
Yeah,
man.
I hate to leave Steve off, but I'm going to leave her off for now. And
yeah,
me
too. I agree.
Back to the turf for the 6th race, state bred allowance at a mile.
Yeah, another race where I think we thought it was pretty much a two-horse race. You got the closer, Mujab Jr., who likes to win, is in terrific forms, won 2 of his last 3 races with really powerful rallies. His only defeat in those last 3 was a $100,000 stake race, finished a really close third to Sunlit Song. Sunlit Song would be an extremely short price here. So Mujab Jr., to me, off the pace. I'm a little nervous about this pick, but I think it's the right one. Mr. Moneybags, the speed, tons of class. He's made almost $500,000. Only ran on turf twice, and those races were actually good. I mean, he runs at Louisiana Downs, an allowance race, leads into deep stretch, finishes second, and then he's got a turf sprint at Remington in October where he just finishes up like you'd expect more of a 2-turn type to do. Hasn't raced since November. I mean, that certainly is a negative. And then I was wondering if Beta Lake may be too quick for.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Ramon Vasquez picked up the mount on Beta Lake. Ezekiel Lara has been off his mounts for a couple days.
Okay.
And I just think it's interesting you get a rider like Ramon Vasquez to pick up a mount like Beta Lake. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but that reminded me. I was in the process of forgetting to mention that.
Yeah, I mean, they got one mission, I would assume, with Beta Lake, get to the front and try to win this race. I mean, he's primarily been a turf sprinter, and he has won going 2 turns against state-bred entry-level allowance rivals last year at Lone Star. So Beta Lake, I think he's going to try to run out there. So Mr. Moneybags, who doesn't have to have the lead to win necessarily, but he prefers the lead. Yeah. So I was just thinking, without a race since November, the pace could be hot. Let's just go with Mujab Jr., which is what I did.
That's exactly my thinking. So since we're running a little short on time, I went 6-4. My only difference is I took Easter Snap with Louis Q picking up the mount. I think he might fit this late runner well. And unlike Mujab Jr., Easter Snap, I don't think he's this good, but he's not liable to be quite as far back as Mujab is. So that might help him a little bit. It's only a 6-horse field. So I went 6-4-1. Okay, we got video on the 7th. Now I got a long shot here, and the last time I picked a big long shot on paper and in fact on the board, it was that Shield Park that won a couple weeks ago. So you may scoff at this pick, which you're entitled to.
Maybe.
It's a scoffable selection perhaps. But let's go back to April 3rd at Sam Houston. High Pursuit is the horse in question here. Now, High Pursuit is the 6-horse. Navy Silks, she's going to be buried about 8th. It's going to be a little hard to see. Navy Silks, white sleeves with some bars on them, buried in between, gets checked right in about here, right in about the 3/8. She's in that big clump of horses, a couple of lengths off the lead, but she got bumped, checked at the 3/8, and then backs out in that huge field. That was a 14-horse field that day, and she was 50-1. Now, from here on in, she's hopelessly beaten way in the back there. But there was some real trouble for her buried in between horses. Wound up beating 17 lengths. But the reason I like her is she's stretching out. I don't particularly like anybody else in here. Puts blinkers on. Luzzy picks up the mount. Gellner is a trainer that I think can improve her, and I like the fact that she really had a quick work on May 9th and has worked reasonably well in the 2 times since. I'm going to give her a shot in a race where I really don't care much for the Battles of Wills and the Brock on Buys and the others. So that's why I went with High Pursuit as a long shot over Brock on Buy and Chrome Run. I didn't even use your Battle of Will, so that may be a black mark on my account.
Yeah, this was a tough race. When I went through it, no one's really raced with the Beyer par except Brock on Buy, who's done it on turf and synthetics. Yep. He's never really raced on dirt except the first two starts of his career, which were actually nice races early in his career. I went with Battle Will for the reason you picked High Pursuit. I mean, I'm thinking he's going to make the lead is what I'm actually hoping he gets to the front. High Pursuit, gets a good pace figure. He was backing up, adds blinkers. I understand what you're saying there. I wish he wouldn't have been 52-1 first out because that had me thinking they didn't think he was much. But nevertheless, the work was really good in blinkers. Battle Will, the same thing. And Say It Ain't Sony came back and ran an 81 out of the Bordeaux Red race. It looks like it would end up being a really nice race. I just think stretching out immediately, I want this Cole down the lead, and we'll see what happens. This was a tricky race.
Yeah.
The 7 Nomadic Fighter, same thing, just overmatched at Fairgrounds. 2 even efforts for Asmussen. Obviously bred to route, so they started routing this colt right away. His buyers are very competitive, even though in New Orleans and then at Oaklawn he was beaten pretty soundly. So, this is a good race to take a shot. I mean, I'm glad to see you like High Pursuit. You make a good case. He might be able to get to the front, and then who knows?
Yeah, I mean, he was somewhat forwardly placed. I'm not sure in reanalyzing the video he was ever a length off the lead at the first point of call. I mean, that's a really tough thing to say because he was 8th. There's no question about that. I think he was more like 2.5 lengths off the lead, but still. The thing that worried me about Battle of Will was he was so highly regarded in that debut race. He was 2-1. Granted, it was a good race, and he earned a better buyer than High Pursuit, and he's more highly regarded, and he's liable to be a better horse, but he didn't come back and work very fast either, which I would have thought he would have made. I think he may make the lead too, but if he had come back with a faster work like he had been working like a hole in the wind, that was the only thing that steered me. But, I mean, highly regarded in his debut. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see him go wire to wire, but I just decided to take a shot. Nomadic Fighter is interesting because his buyer figs, like you say, are very competitive, but he himself wasn't competitive in those races at Oaklawn and Fairgrounds. But dropping into this spot, he might be much more competitive, but I couldn't get him any higher than 4th. This is a really interesting race. If Plutonium or Tucum or Demuro wins, I'll be shocked. If any of the others win, not so much.
Yeah, those flashy breezes in New Orleans, that's what got me. And then, as you see, I did make him the favorite off of what we'd call a lackluster debut. This is the type of horse I just feel like the public's going to like again. The Calhoun horse.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I picked him. I just think the public, as a line maker, I took a shot making him the favorite, but I really just feel like my experience again, I just feel like the public's going to like a horse like this.
Oh, I agree. I mean, nobody else was less than 4-1 in their last starts, and typically Brock on Buy has been a long shot. So
typically.
I'm with you on that. Okay. 8th race, 6 furlongs, filly and mare allowance.
The 6 Canadian Ginger, 7-5. I mean, wins a starter allowance at Oaklawn by nearly 5 lengths, earns this big buyer figure, 13 points faster than the par. So I'll just make that quick and simple. That's the one to catch. Mind Me, though, is my exacta horse. 8-1 on the line off that, pretty mediocre maiden special weight buyer speed figure. The workout, though, is what got me. Worked in company with Fincher, 48-2. The horse that worked with him was whipping and driving, and this thing could not have done it easier. So I just think maybe this horse doesn't like slop. In spite of it, works really big on a fast track. I think Mind Me's the sleeper out there. And then Stay Thirsty, my amigo, who was really good at Houston. You can make excuses for the last 2. Turf race, muddy track, even though he did finish second. The numbers look a lot better at Houston.
Great claim for Asmussen. Stay Thirsty, my amigo. I mean, if you look, this mare has made $41,000 this year. He claimed her right before Christmas at Remington for $7,500. He's gotten 3 wins and a second, and then that one race, against NJ's Brass on the turf. That's an easy one to throw out. Great claim. I went with Canadian Ginger as well. I think it's kind of a catch-her-to-collect situation. The only thing that concerns me a little is a couple times this week I picked horses coming off their career best buyer. Yesterday it worked with Algebra. A couple days ago it didn't work with the name that I've blocked out of my mind, whoever it was that I picked the other night. But I mean, she's had a little bit, had about a month off since that race at Oaklawn. By the way, the 3 Lovey-Dovey is scratched out of that race. But I took Canadian Ginger as well. I'm wishing I had included your Mind Me in my pick 4 ticket because I do think she can be dangerous. Susie's Dream is my 3rd pick. She really prefers dry tracks. If the track comes up sloppy between now and then, I would toss her almost entirely. All right, on to the 9th. 7.5 on turf. Scratch the 4 Patriots War. Non-winners of 2. Yesterday we had a horse named John Doe in the last race who profiled as a heavy favorite and in fact was. And I think he ran 2nd in that race. And I thought he was kind of vulnerable. And today I think October Surprise is kind of the John Doe of today. I mean, he's going to be a favorite. I don't know. I picked him. I don't know if I love him necessarily.
Yeah, John Doe, I don't know. I didn't have the confidence in a 4 to 5 when that I should have, and then it turns out the good thing he got beat, run 2nd. October Surprise I think is a little more solid because he's taken that big drop from 8. He's done nothing but running maiden special weight races. I know this is a non-winners of 2, but most of these broke their maidens and maiden claimers. Earns a really big buyer his last start here at Lone Star Park going a mile. Back on turf, he's only run on turf once. It was a pretty good effort. I just think he's a little too talented for this field. And Asmussen spotted imperfectly in a conditioned claimer.
And if it comes off the turf, he's probably going to be even a shorter price.
Yeah, for sure. A Big Mac Daddy for Fincher is my 2nd pick. Easy maiden winner at Houston Sprinting. Goes 2 turns here at Lone Star Park. Finishes 2nd at the same exact level. Tries turf for the first time. I noticed the Dam Barrel Roll was a multiple turf winner. Violence. I thought this was interesting. And he's a 17% wet turf sire, which it's interesting that they put. I didn't even know they put wet turf. And if we're going to be on the turf at that time of day, it might be a wet turf.
Might be.
So anyway, Big Mac Daddy, if it's drizzling, move him up.
Yeah.
And then I'll go with the 6 Outer Banks, who won his career debut. Sprinting on turf. He's certainly bred to go around 2 turns. And again, I don't usually like 1 race in a route. I prefer 2 sprints in a route. But nevertheless, that was a pretty promising first start.
Yeah, I mean, that 67 buyer certainly gets my attention. And, the racing at Houston was good this winter. I think that form has tended to duplicate itself better this year than it has in some of the past years. And, this filly this horse ran really well. There's going to be a jockey change there. I'll be announcing it. I forget exactly now who it is. That might be a TBA. I'm not sure. But, I have the same picks in the same order. Originally, I thought Patriots War had a shot against October Surprise, a good shot, simply because he had, had some experience against winners more recently than October Surprise hasn't faced winners before. Patriots War, though, I don't know. I mean, he's out of the race, but some of his best performances were on main tracks. But he's out. So I think that does open things up for an Outer Banks, a Big Mac Daddy, horses like that. But I think October Surprise now looks pretty salty against this bunch, especially now that the 4 is out of there.
Yep.
If the others do something, it would be a surprise. Now, if the race comes off the turf, still like October Surprise, but it could mix it up a little for, the Tri-Super, that sort of thing.
He'd probably be a single if it comes up. If it gets muddy at that point, I think most people would probably single him in their multi-race wagers, I would think.
I tentatively singled him in the pick 4 only because of uncertainty over the track conditions and the fact that I had a hard time mustering up adding those other horses to the cost of the ticket. All right, well, that will do it. I heard a couple dogs bark. It is Lone Star Bark Day. We will have some dog races between our horse races. Rick and I have not analyzed those. I just predict you're going to see dogs go in every direction. That's my prediction for the dog race. And some are going to probably, visit parts of the racetrack that you don't normally see.
That they're prohibited from going to.
All right, Rick. Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us and looking in, and good luck today.